Michael J. with the opinion. Today, the object of our conversation is going to be, it is obvious conservatives are deliberately hijacking efforts to restructure the Canadian economy. It's already June the 4th. We just had an election April the 28th. And as at June the 4th, 2025, the Conservatives are deliberately hijacking efforts to restructure the Canadian economy, including the Bloc and NDP. You say, well, what are you saying, Michael? Those are serious allegations, and I stand behind them. We're going to start off with Mr. Claypool here. Wyatt Claypool. Take it away, Mr. Claypool.
Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here.
Wyatt.
I apologize for having ever said that Francois-Philippe Champagne seemed like a professional. He is currently our finance minister in Canada, and from the surface level, it seemed like he'd maybe be one of the more serious people in Mark Carney's cabinet. But no, the man apparently doesn't understand economics 101. Check this out. He says, Canada's economy grew by 2.2% in quarter one, above market expectations and among the strongest in the G7. We're building Canada strong. Now, if we grew by 2.2% in the first quarter of 2025, we should be making Francois-Philippe Champagne and Mark Carney like the gods of Canada.
Okay, so my question to you, Mr. Claypool, why are you not following through? Nobody should be a god. Let's be honest. Everybody has value and worth, even Wyatt Claypool.
2.2% in one quarter? That's not actually how that works. No.
Yeah, that is how that works. It's annualized. Let's understand. That's stated as annualized. And the fact of the matter, you're trying to create a non-truth out of a truth. And this is where it's dangerous, and this is why the Conservatives, the Bloc, and the NDP got to get on the same page. We need unity. We need to restructure the Canadian economy, and we need to open our borders from BC to the east coast of Canada. Full stop. Let's stop with the nonsense. Let's stop with this conservative rhetoric. We've seen down in the United States, Agent Orange, Donald Trump. He's influencing the Polish election, just got a President Nawrocki elected. He had Kristi Noem, his Department of Homeland Security, CPAC, which is the conservative platform, like CPAC. Like, what's going on? Kristi Noem, down there in Poland, influencing the elections. They tried, and they're putting in, here's the deal. The guy Nawrocki is a puppet of Putin and Trump. Not just Trump, but Putin also. They tried to do it in Romania, but it wasn't successful. They've had a guy in Serbia for 13 years. Uses a defense building that was a cultural heritage designated property, and they do a backroom deal with Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner to develop a property in Serbia. Like, come on. Like, this is nonsensical. We got to get our stuff together here, Canada. Get our shit together. Did I say that? Yes, I did. Okay, Clayton, take it away, sir.
The quarter is only, drum roll please, 0.5. 0.5%. We had a 0.5 quarterly.
Okay, this is where Clayton loses he loses his cookies. What a metaphor. Clayton loses his cookies. How does he lose his cookies? Well, pretty simple, folks. And I'll show you how. First of all, GDP rose, yes, at a 2.2% annualized. That's an annualized. Whether it gets revised later in the year, that'll be a different story. But 2.2% annualized. Now, the government said 2.2% annualized. TD Economics, 2.2% annualized. CBC, 2.2 annualized first quarter. And who else? Trading Economics. Trading Economics. Bank of Canada, Bank of America, quarter one growth, keeping Bank of Canada on hold. Canadian GDP update. Reuters, 2.2% annualized. BNN Bloomberg, 2.2% annualized. So Yahoo, 2.2% annualized. It says in the first quarter, but let's say annualized. Bank of Canada. You know, like what more do you need? RBC, Canadian GDP update. Canadian GDP update? Yes, Canadian GDP update. 2.2% annualized. The details. GDP rose at a 2.2% annualized pace in quarter one, 2025. So there you go. 2.2. They also say 2.3, so go figure. That's RBC. Whoa. So there you go. That's that. What more do you want to know? Okay, CBC says 2.2. Oh, and here's Stats Canada. Okay, first quarter, quarterly change 0.8%. Woo. No, let's put this on pause. Let's go back to part 1, 0.5. So this matches up with Wyatt Claypool, but here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is where the math hits the pavement. The rubber hits the road. Okay. In the first quarter of 2025, after increasing 1.7% in the fourth quarter of 2024, let me reiterate, recapitulate, state it once again for all the pundits. After increasing 1.7% in the fourth quarter of 2024, well, do the math. 1.7% plus 0.5%, I'm a genius. It equals 2.2. Equals 2.2. So there you go. Full stop. Conversation over. Wyatt Claypool, sorry. I was going to say Clyde. Clyde Claypool. Wyatt Claypool, thank you for your input. Don't waste any more of our time. Come back to the table with something that has merit and helps us in unity. Get this country together. Let's stop with the rhetoric. Number 2, Wyatt Claypool again. Holy crap. He's front and center. Now it's lose vote in Parliament. And I'm not going to go much deeper into this because lose vote in Parliament is that there was an amendment to the throne speech to have the budget tabled immediately for spring, even though it was represented and actually confirmed that it'll be there in the fall. And let's be clear, the former government of Stephen Harper and Mr. Pierre Poilievre, when they first came into power in 2006, took them over 4 months to put their first budget on the table. I know in 2011 they did it in a month, but you know, they had a government running consecutively for 9 years. So, like, come on, folks. Let's wake up. We got a unity crisis going on. We got a worldwide economic crisis because of this Agent Orange in the United States. He's influencing and upsetting everything around the world. Let's face it. Number 3. Number 3 on my list? Here we go. Conservative MP Aaron Gunn puts his first speech on the table.
Thank Mr. Speaker, I am honored to be standing here before you today to give my first ever speech as a member of Parliament. And let me first start off by thanking the incredible people of my riding of North Island Powell River. I am here first and foremost because of the trust they have placed in me to be their voice and their elected representative in this esteemed chamber. And that is something for which I will always be grateful and I will never forget.
So will I.
It's been almost 2 years now since I first decided to seek the Conservative Party nomination and run in the last election. The decision the federal government had borrowed and was leaving to future generations to pay for. It was a great tool for people to help visualize just how much we were leaving that next generation to pay for.
We're starting now already. Conservative platform, let's cut. You're in a moment of crisis. What do you do in a moment of crisis? You invest in yourself. But no, these guys want to cut.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that particular debt clock no longer exists. Because under the Liberals and the NDP, we have managed to borrow more money in the last 10 years than every other government in the history of this country combined, and we literally ran out of digits on the clock. Of course, all this spending, borrowing, and printing of money has other consequences as well. The highest inflation we've seen in more than 30 years.
Did you forget we had a worldwide pandemic? Like a worldwide pandemic? Caused inflation to spike around the world? Do you understand how inflation comes into play? You had no GDP because nobody was out there working. So GDP was like friggin' El Zippo. That's how inflation happened. It was worldwide, non-exclusive to Canada. What more can this guy put it? Let's look here.
Wage job working on the railway. Yet on that minimum wage job, he was able to afford a home and a nice piece of property right on Vancouver Island and have it paid off in less than 10 years.
Okay, so we waste our time in Parliament. We already know we got an affordability crisis. We actually realized that it started happening and the wheels were put in motion as at 1970-71 that created the problem. It's not an overnight thing. A lot of governments had a lot to do with it. So let's let that go. So this is what the Conservatives are doing right now in the House of Commons. Now, here we go. Moose on the loose. Okay, and people are listening to Wyatt Claypool, Moose on the Loose, and listening to this nonsense that's not helping anybody right now. All it is drama. All it is creating, it's conjecture. It's just creating further separation when we should be in a moment of unity, putting things together. Now, I'm just going to go over this slightly. I'm going to leave links in the description. You can check the links out to verify everything. But here, the girl from Power Play at CTV, Miss Vassy, is putting Mr. Mulcair. I didn't do Lisa Raitt because, you know where she's coming from. Well, let's look at Mulcair and what Mulcair has to say.
Going in, this wasn't just Donald Trump tweeting, this is now happening. Mark Carney's elbows up isn't doing anything.
I think there is like an interesting sort of dynamic as well, as Lisa mentioned, Tom, with a lot of consensus around that table yesterday at creating the conditions for private investment, like some premiers emphasizing it more than others. We also did see at the same time, though, other premiers say that they hope there'd be federal money for the projects that they were pitching. How do you think those two things will happen?
Well, I think that some of the things that were so positive had to do with form. I really held on to Doug Ford's words when he said it was respectful. Now, he didn't have to about Justin Trudeau for everybody to understand that that's what he was talking about. And it's so refreshing to see Mr. Carney say, we're all going to be meeting in Saskatoon. And lo and behold, Premier Moe over the weekend saying, it's been 40 years, 40 years since the other provinces and the feds have shown up here. So that in and of itself was a signal. And yes, it had more to do with form than substance, but it informed, it gave the form to the rest of the meeting. Premier Legault was attacked really strongly by the two separatist parties. Yes, one wasn't enough. We have two separatist parties now in Quebec City by and Quebec Solidaire this afternoon in question period because he dared go to a meeting with Ottawa and have things go well. Newfoundland and Labrador have a project on Gull Island. They've signed a rewritten a massive hydroelectric deal with Hydro-Quebec that was always a thorn in their side because they thought the initial deal was super unfair to them, and I guess it was. And now Quebec is on board, and now the feds are saying, you know what, this is exactly the type of nation-building project. We want to help you bring that electricity down from Labrador through Quebec, and we're going to be there as partners. And of course, Legault was getting attacked for it. Legault, very similar to Doug Ford, went one step further, and he goes, you know, this is the first time, and he's in his 7th year now, he's finishing his 7th year. He says, this is the first time I've gone to a federal provincial meeting on the economy where we've talked about the economy. And he was full of praise for Mark Carney, saying this guy actually is on that page. And that's Legault's page as well. So it's just...
Mark Carney.
Moose, step aside. Enough of your nonsense. You've wasted enough of our time already, sir. Yikes, did I say that? Yes, I did. And I mean it. Okay. Where are we going here now? Okay, and this is part of Moose's, I'll leave a link for his video. And this is also in his video as well. Now, this is Melissa Landsman. She's the deputy under Pierre Poilievre for the Conservatives. And listen to what she's got to say.
It's really their first defeat. You know, some of us were caught off guard that they went down on this one. But Stephen McKinnon, the government House leader, is not really taking this all that seriously, saying today that it was just a non-binding advisory resolution. What do you say to him?
Well, look, I think this is the first indication that you'll see a government that's a lot like the last one in terms of you know, ignoring the will of Parliament. So you have the majority of MPs passing this motion to demand that the government tables a budget, and now you have a government sort of flat out ignoring that. And I think that Canadians deserve that. We haven't had a proper accounting of the books in more than a year.
Hey, money's not going anywhere. You're going to find out where it's going. Fact of the matter is, we got to work quickly to start getting the framework together to start changing this economic situation here in Canada to become self-sufficient. Number one, it's already been represented that a budget bill has been promised for the fall. And that's reasonable. Full stop.
A year. It's a convention to obviously put up a budget in, and frankly, Mark Carney is the guy who said that he had a plan, and instead tabled $500 billion of estimates, which is 8% higher than the 2% cap that he talked about earlier and before tabling that. And I think Canadians deserve to know where that money's spent, how it's spent, and where the government's at.
If it's such a concern, though, why was the language kind of weak, frankly, in the amendment? It was saying, you know, MPs are urging the government to introduce a budget. Why not demand, require, we need to see one?
Parliament's not shade of gray. It's, you know, it's introduce a budget or not. Vote yes or no. There's no gray area in this. So MPs, the majority of which...
Yeah, the gray area is this is a non-confidence motion that was put forward because it's an amendment to the throne speech. Nonetheless, it's just more of a waste of time. Everybody could be doing more constructive matters that help make sure that we open up our borders from the west coast to the east coast of Canada, start working and getting projects together. If you think for a moment that you're going to get a pipeline project, Pierre Poilievre, I'll make sure the rubber's stamped in 6 months. You know, you'll be lucky to get that stuff approved within 1 year, and that's darn quick for that kind of stuff.
Have said to the government, hey,
table
a budget. They voted for it. Canadians are demanding it by way of Parliament, and I think it's incumbent on this government to respect the will of Parliament, and I think it speaks more to the fact that they can't.
Right. She says a lot of stuff. Let's see what else she's got to say here.
In this country to provide a proper accounting and certainty that businesses need and families need and workers need in this country. Yes,
Hey, let's be clear on one thing. Having a budget right now will not make the average family have a different outlook on life. It's not going to change their outlook on life. It's not going to change the outlook on most businesses right now. And I'll tell you why for business it's much more importantly critical that we actually support the newly elected government to get things in place to invoke or evoke change because of the situation with the United States and what he's creating for the world. Like, let's be fair and honest. Let's prioritize the way we need to prioritize for the benefit of people instead of getting caught up in this noise and this rhetoric that detracts from what needs to be done, so what needs to be done doesn't get done, which is not a good thing. Conservatives said, we're going to help. Well, you're less than 5 weeks into a new administration, and you're already seeing what the opposition's doing. The Conservatives are just disruptors of no benefit to Canada the way they're acting, to continue acting the way they have over the past 5 years. That's why Carleton threw Pierre Poilievre out. That was the first sign of a rebuke to that American Maple Mega North ideology being utilized here in Canada. We don't need it. And we don't need LeBlanc, Bloc Québécois, getting in the way of things as well. And we do not need the NDP because they feel sore by the fact that they did not do well in the last election. We've got to get stuff done here now. And it requires unity and working together.
It has been a month for the election, and already they're ignoring the will of Parliament, the first chance that they can get. In terms of, do they not have time to put a budget together? Well, they do. We know that convention and historically a government has...
Okay, you're going to get one. You're going to get one in the fall. Simple as that. Let's not waste any more time. What's next on the agenda?
Mr. Speaker, Parliament demanded a budget from this Liberal government. Last night, a Conservative motion passed calling on the Prime Minister to table a budget this spring. The Liberals are asking Parliament to approve $500 billion in Liberal spending with no budget. Despite promising to spend less and cap government spending at 2%, they've increased it by 8%. Single moms, seniors, small business owners must budget before they spend. Parliament wants these Liberals to do the same. Will the minority Liberal government listen to the majority in this House and table a budget immediately?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this week was a great week for the London Knights. It was a greater week for the country of Canada. Every First Minister in Canada, from Quebec, from the provinces, from the territories, Government of Canada agreed on a plan to build Canada strong, one Canadian economy out of 13. That's what the province country
The Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Thanks for the update, but what about a budget? Canadians deserve real fiscal management, not excuses or fact-free talking points. And here's some of the facts. Liberal consultant spending is expected to rise 35% to $26 billion, breaking their promise to cut down on consultants. Fact. Wow. Liberals promised $20 billion in elbows up U.S. tariffs, but later dropped them with no regard to affected Canadian workers or fiscal impacts. Fact. The majority of this chamber voted last night for a spring budget. Fact. On what date would the Liberals face the facts and table a budget for their $500 billion in new spending?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the First Ministers agreed on a plan to build this great country. Stand up to Donald Trump. Fact. That's right. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada is imposing tariffs that cause maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada. Fact. On over $60 billion of U.S. exports to Canada. Fact. Raised over $1.7 billion already. Fact, fact, fact.
$33 billion spent while Parliament was shut down by this government. A spending package of $500 billion with a record $26 billion for Liberal-friendly consultants like McKinsey, and no oversight or scrutiny from Parliament. Well, this House has had enough. Last night, the House passed our Conservative motion calling on the Prime Minister to table a spring budget. Will the Prime Minister respect the will of Parliament and table a budget immediately so Canadians in this Parliament can have the transparency we deserve?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take note of last night's motion. But what Canadians deserve, what Canadian provinces deserves, is a health care transfer, is a transfer for child care, is a transfer for dental care, is a transfer to support affordability. That's what's in the main estimates, and we expect the support of members opposite.
The Right Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, I realize he's new here, but all those things would be in a budget if it paid.
Let's be clear on one thing. Whether those items will be in a budget or not is irrelevant. They are just costs of natural operating costs, just for the regular course of business. Nothing more and nothing less, and the Conservatives are making it into something else, wasting time and trying to exert their will and sabotage the will of the people as it's a power grab just for themselves. Like, we need unity. We've got a progressive plan that has already started to be put into place, and we don't need it hijacked and railroaded out of existence before it gets going. Simple as that.
Spend a staggering $26 billion on high-priced, Liberal-friendly consultants, an eye-watering $1,400 for every Canadian family. They'll present no budget, no departmental plans, and zero transparency. They won't even stand in this House and tell Canadians what the deficit will be this year. Will the Liberals come clean, table the spring budget as this House has demanded?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the member opposite, I know the difference between main estimates and budget. Unlike the member opposite, I know how to grow. Unlike the member opposite, I know how to grow this economy.
Whenever things get to the point where I can't hear, that's when I stand up and halt time. So would the Right Honourable Prime Minister like to back up a bit and take another run at it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will speak softly. Unlike the member opposite, I know the difference between a main estimate and a budget. And unlike the members opposite, we know how to grow this economy without spending money. And that's why we're proposing a bill to build one Canadian economy out of 13. And all the provinces and Quebec agree.
So there you go, folks. That is that. Enough of that. Now, this is what the Conservatives are doing.
That kind of drew disappointment and upsettedness from the donor, who we are not identifying because he doesn't want to be identified as a Conservative donor. Basically, the party caller said that they needed more money because the Liberals and the media continue to, quote, scrutinize the results of 2 recounts and attack the Conservatives.
Really, why Conservatives need more money from their donors is they just want to disrupt what we're trying to do to create one prosperous country. Simple as that, folks.
Conservatives, basically implying that the results of the recount were not finalized and could potentially change. We have a part of that conversation. Here's how it went.
We won the two major election recounts all across the country. But the media liberals are trying to attack us and scrutinize our results. So now we have political operators on the ground.
So this was about a 2-minute call, but she raised this again and again, that more money was needed to deal with the recounts, and even went on to say, we need to stand up, we need to make sure all the votes are accurate and counted. But of course, the thing is, JP, we know that these judicial recounts are over, that winners have been declared. In this case, it's 2 Conservatives, one in a Windsor area riding and another in a riding in Newfoundland. And you know, the Liberals have conceded defeat in both of these ridings. There is no threat to these this position, these recounts changing at this time. And so the potential donor knew this and actually brought this up and said, I don't like your message. I don't like what you're saying. That's not accurate. There is no threat here. And the caller, the fundraiser, argued with him and ultimately, you know, hung up on him. And he said that he was disappointed by this because it cast doubt on the independence of the electoral process. And for that reason, he had recorded the call and he shared it with me. We did confirm the veracity of the call by dialing the number back, and it was a Conservative Party phone number. So he is sharing this because he wants to share the message that it is not okay to fundraise, with the implication that perhaps there was a serious problem with the voting system. But of course, we know this is not the first time the Conservatives have done this in recent months. There was a fundraising email that went out that our colleague Kat Tunney reported on at the time, shortly after the election, saying they needed money because the suggesting that the Liberals sought to flip just enough seats to edge closer to a majority, and were trying to tip the scales in the recounts. Now, you and I know there are some actual expenses incurred during a recount. You know, there's legal representation, there are people on the ground. That is real. But the potential donor on the other end of the line didn't know what additional costs would be incurred after a recount when there is a winner, and why the party would continue fundraising on that even after it happened. So he was also, of course, disappointed that the Conservative caller hung up on him.
Right. And what's the Conservative Party saying about this call?
Well, party spokesperson Sarah Fisher did send me a statement yesterday saying that parties are able to have people on the ground making sure that the recounts are done right and the process is fair and transparent. But she didn't answer the question that I asked, which is why the party would continue fundraising off of recounts that have already happened, where the result is clear. She did say, however, that the party is looking into this caller's conduct after I pointed out that the donor was hung up on, saying that
create the crisis, provide a cure for the crisis, and then deny, deny, deny. And that's where it's at. And that's where we're at. So let's not waste any more time. Conservatives are supposed to be helping create the restructuring of this country. This is not a good way to start, folks. Get on the phone to your MPs, Conservative MPs. Get them online. Let's build this country up the way we need to. And you don't do it by conquer and divide. This is just nonsense. Questions, comments, throw in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Take care. Ciao for now. And by the way, love and peace to everyone.